is, nerd, Villa, ignorance. His first big cover is to write and your enemies have to avenge them. Man is a free will agent, and it is very crude and slow to acquire knowledge. As a result, it cannot be kept in check as a body. There are some who hear the words of wisdom, but they are few. They return to the battlefield, or privately but for their enemies, and often their vengeance is of a rather terrifying nature. Happens so really terrifying that it might not belong here. In College Zoe 242 do they take their vengeance on the enemy but the foreman's innocent wife, children, sister, mother, and relatives, infants and old people too, car care, foramen here soul and the war goes on indefinitely. The bodies can no longer be killed and so they hatch a terrible conspiracy against the soul. For torture. Brothers, sisters, there are such things, they are not the ones. Teach war on earth and practice and it is released within heaven, often on a long and massive scale. Before their methods of getting the people involved in it to see the error, nature develops but slowly and one soul in the same way the wise do not become better. Now when an ambitious leader comes into this life, whose only desire has been to achieve victory on the strength of weapons, he kills his enemy as he usually receives a large army of slain, to his surprise for a lot how strange it feels when they find out that none of them not actually killed, but transferred from one plane to another. Page 243 Now there is a force standing in front of him which cannot be killed, the living soul to give bitter, vengeful. He sees them and they see them. Now it's their turn they 243 look. It is now an army against one man. Everything gets messed up. But some time ago, at his behest, he destroyed the entire race in a jiffy. Could have gone, now he stands alone, and a flower is leaning upon him. He can gather some of his men about himself, but it is useless. He can no longer kill his enemies and they can't kill them, still, their feelings have not changed less or less. He wants to destroy them, and they want to be gained by them. Make them suffer for their mistakes. They swoon with anger and every man wants his own separate side to take revenge and other if he can get it then he is bound to get them. It is not it takes a long time for man high general to find out. They didn't kill them and now there is nothing left for them to fly. Kyle, my dear son, I am a captain, Kangal, or Shikamla Hanumanya, great spirit his face depicted flying, horror and fear, a vengeful, wrathful spirits in intense pursuit with the army a dreary task. When they come and being able to hold them for some time, they claim that how they can articulate them well, and often their claims it's scary to watch. This state of things cannot be predicted well, or cannot be made in one go but as fast as page 244 maybe, all the errors fade away. 244 How on earth to fix things, much better to work is at the same time, how good it is that man does not kill himself, brother man. Far away here a soul comes who during his earthly life, only for the good of humankind in general has worked. Maybe he was a great songwriter Hainan, a great writer, a great inventor, a great writer, a great reformer, a man who has tried to bring truth to the world and religion or there is no error in politics, the man who has loved his brother and has tried to help in every way he could, he comes to life all spirits and angels have covered his works. How is that Kamala? I'll tell you after his immediate relatives and friends met him and received them, a group of grateful people and loving souls and the angels are waiting for him, sir, and they look with each other to see they compete for who they will be in great happiness, for every kind the work done for humanity, 1,000 souls, oh, locks, by their every grace ready to stand power, they receive them with reverent gestures and praise, they crown him with glory as their king, for him weave necklaces and bows of grace, web nay to be victorious merciful with his name carry on chariots, send flowers and deliver angelic songs through the march to the arch, while the chariot is pulled by horses. Page 245 Page 246 These are not idle tales, but they are as much a story. I write them to you, and how do we want to tell the people of the earth when these things? Hey, listen. The people of the earth, soon the more you know about this life, for you I am present. Don't do any mistake, because it is definitely your meeting, you will commit to it. Oh, I want to tell you a lot. A man or woman who has spent his whole life on earth, benefit of humanity, willingness to do something for, upon coming here and on earth as much as has received less, finds, as the earlier mentioned general, that of things the sequence is reversed. All those who have their rights have once been a source of profit, now take advantage of this myself, and untold wealth piles up upon them, but there is no power to pay, in the wealth of the soul becomes even more powerful. Car also, as I've said before, we have spiritual correspondence. We have that which appears like gold, silver, and molasses, but is like a commodity. Putting too much power on such things, the bowl matches itself, or that they have sufficient knowledge to build them into sublime materials, but no one can be possessed except these things, who have wisdom, love, and iruth, and cannot be exchanged for their loss. There each the soul is what it really deserves. 246 page 247. We want to answer some of the armors we collect are still on earth, many cases of paralysis, which cause matter to the soul. Thus do not argue, because allow us to say that there is only one way to argue is poetry is wrong, and the mistake leads to the conclusion. No matter what, it usually starts, but it does not end there, especially the conclusion of the argument in the drawing. Don't start the game to the soul via chromoplasm, or matter, and then to the chemical affinity argue, because in doing so you are not infallible or just in error and ended in lily, but begin with the spirit, which descends or is attracted is to talk, with which it covers itself and then continuously draws matter towards itself until it is fully developed. Be everyone's spiritual enthusiasm of your kind also. Let's take it one way. Action, it ascends in its perfect form in the celestial sphere. But we have already said enough about this in one of our earlier letters, and now would not say that the brain of the medium was not stimulated to some extent, subject but finished reading a long dissertation. We can fix this error through medium. They also want to get out of the way of many other people. Come to many conclusions that a spiritual being cannot have feet, hands, eyes, ears, or any others, and so many people go wrong because they don't start here. 247. When a person wants to reach a certain city, or other place, one must follow the same path, otherwise he will be lost in other paths, whichever takes every place except where he wants to reach. But that page 248. Back to the topic we started with, our life here in the celestial world. Kylie, my dear son, you know by nature I was a very restless and active man when in demand with you. You often used to make me very impatient, and now I understand completely. Why was I thinking like this? When I follow the logic of malefic men in the body could not, especially the religious logic of man, who is angry, measure me beyond, and, as I went through such a great mistake not to find my way back then, I impatiently checked something and became righteous, like my friend Enroll, a puck agnostic. When I left my body and entered this beauty and the soul-satisfying celestial realm, I was truly elated and delighted. I shouted. But I will not repeat the details of my entry into this life, but move on to the more important topic. I wish that I could straighten the lines in every man's life, however, if I can't do it, so I'll do what I can. And when I found myself being immortal, my outer armor remained, and talk about all the great men I've ever heard of. 248 on the earth, and when I found that this wish was readily available, it made me feel better. Made him happy, and now most of my time is spent meeting and talking to him. Those whose minds are great, are indeed very great. These great men, educated in all its various branches, more or less engaged as professor institute. I teach in one or two different colleges or departments of science. Page 249. On earth I was just a professor of music, art, educated, as good as you, as they know, their own guardian, but my mind was very restless and lala. I wanted to understand other things as well, such as music, so I determined to self-organize and compile in his first principles. I am very good, as you well know, but when I wrote that song above, I started with the universe, wanted to go with first principles and going as far as I was able. Kyle, Dear boy, I didn't start there, and you always follow me told, but I thought that my son definitely can't be his father. They are highly intelligent, because you admitted you didn't. The underlying principles in the universe did so much that you were sure that death after was a life. I speak false body, and I have no one around my tie can't argue with your faith. When Jay asked you what can you give proof? 249 give me, you replied that you can't give me anyone except it cook. The only difference of self-belief was the letter of the world. 107 spirit, but my soul I didn't have this faith and I was unconcerned, even if I started that way would have come to the same conclusion as I did in the song. That was where you had reached. Now our great aim in this world is to start the same in all things. Music may be the great principles underlying it apply to all things in nature. When will you make a single one? We start with the least sound that in the environment can be made to vibrate, and we go until we reach that highest. Page 250 does not reach the sound that vibrates on mortal ears. When we did so we have really only hit a grand sweep in which all include the intermediate octave and scales within it, but there are above it and there are actually several chapters below that the human ear cannot detect, and these, the first with the same letter as mentioned, get into the spiritual realm. Right now I think I can do it in any way. All musicians are well aware that it takes one to vibrate so fast. Strings can be made that no sound can be detected by them, but if there is vibration, of course there is sound. Make a sound too can only be heard with sophisticated spiritual ears. Very fine mechanical wheels that can be rotated so fast that no sound can be heard by mortal man. 250 cannot be selected, and the fine spokes of the wheel, or the fringe, can't even be seen. It looks like a single body at rest, but were one to touch those wheels, the hand that touched them becomes instantaneous, offer reach what is invisible, spiritual, and sublimes all gross matter which comes in contact. Now these things are all that is needed to make it a higher state of being, a spiritual existence. I love every statement I make. Do it. If two invisible substances, joining together, make up water a lot, in fact physical and visual matter, don't be surprised when I say we can, because we have the necessary knowledge, being spiritual, diamond, silver, and all kinds make precious stones, we only have to integrate some sublimation. Page 251 diplomatic enemies and we can have anything and everything we want, and it gives us all kinds of building materials, whenever we go to our rooms, halls. Raise up knowledge, and the towers of wisdom so sophisticated and beautiful men and women can't do them anyway, and these are the places we live in the halls and in the temples we teach the people gathered, the congregation, the classes, and come. For a beautiful environment, we must have the beauty of the soul, the beauty of the mind, wisdom, virtuosity, and action of conduct, love for all who are alive, walk is or is possessed of, and a strong desire in all various forms of death. 251 Wisdom, love, and truth. All things that can be doomed are the three words. The opposite of these are ignorance, error, and falsehood or error. Whether any soul, or mortal, will not seek knowledge, he should remain ignorant. If it won't be love, no, it will definitely determine, and I don't care, it would be false and deceit. We have it here as you do on earth. A man who comes here in ignorance is still ignorant. That dance is full, so he still dances. If he is a liar, he is still a liar. If a sexist, he is still sensual, and hence the souls of each and every faculty they are concerned with. Now you cannot see that it is sufficient for us to do, that no punishment is free, can't live in idleness. I think some of our establishments here, the description will be of interest to you, as I hope I solved the question we have taken what we have when it is mentioned in these letters. I already have described the hall of learning in which I listened to Jesus and others, teaching spirits in prison. I also told about my own self and other angels, also very beautiful, that the beauty of many is stifling and beyond being that of a man or a woman, and page 252 that it is in harmony with the spirits that create and build them. In these words I have told you the picture. Each wise angel's type is usually made by Pari. Sometimes, love friend Japri, a little more than a suggestion, please do otherwise, but our schools and manners, halls, and much more, companies, or 252 bands of angels, all working together for this purpose, such brilliant, shining until the buildings stand before us to surprise us, and there is nothing on the earth that can compare to them. Think of a grand building made of diamonds and ever so precious stones, each holds an internal spiritual meaning. How to do now that many the greatest the architects who have ever lived on earth and who have long lived within heaven as long as there were angels, the world added peace to its art, added itself together to plan this beautiful building, and then a great deal of angels the water is working together to make it stand out. This allows VOU to be located in our buildings and cafe. We build a unique armor of Ha. Some of these beautiful halls are for the purpose of teaching chemistry, which we have a grand study with us, others can be compared to your churches, religious to misbehave righteous mind and errors of born souls, others for music, art for all its different forms, but there ain't no jail, no penitence, no cogging how, no official, no policeman, no police court. In hospitals we have much for the sick, the ignorant, and canrish souls who come here. Ours is a smarter, ignorant, teaching great page 253 objective self-knowledge, love and truth, not refer to them as irritating, 253 because the natural law is doing, and has done, that before, but they're to get out of bad condition. Our mission is to fix all errors as soon as possible. Now we couldn't do this by swimming around in the ambient ether. Without places of residence, except for manors and halls, or objects of any kind. Why? Many spiritualists, in fact. There are more gaps than conservative, because beside the barricade is heaven with pearls, gates, and golden boys, thrones, veils, in crochet, clothing, and the rest of the beach. There is a lot of them. There is a manch. Emotions, because they are things to see, to live, and to enjoy. My first wife's in a book written by Spirit. It is called Mary and Karov, which actually originated. The first name was Spiritual Life, with child life, expansion, and in great length. The book consists of more than 9 pages, written entirely by that spirit who was my son Kyle's mother, going into a spiritual life when she was only 3. It was of the year. It would be possible for me, in these letters, to give much as what's in the book. Moreover, I can't write that much as a beautiful woman can do. Go buy that book, eat it. Mothers have small children. Books for $1 should be in the office. You will never want the dollar back. Page 254, 254, page 255. I'm silent, I'm sure. We intend to go ahead with these letters, to enter into the details of what we have done as of now. It will still happen, but in comparison to the glimpses books that the medium is written, before we could even catch such a glimpse, we prepared the way is forced to do, otherwise no one can understand them, especially those sly people who think we only float in the ether, without chag, rudder, or vibrator. Still, we don't expect what we have to say. Believe them, because we cannot the hope of persuading the cover of desire. My dear wife, Helena, and I are hanging out, but we can't control the medium. Write this letter to return on time, and I think we have experienced that the difficulty of those who believe in our walk is not less how many we are telling. Picture, and when you will learn more about them in our next letter. Ask your side whether we have come to heaven. The woman we have come to earth loved, not always. We have become one for the woman who is our. Were created according to our image. We have the same affection, desire, and taste. 255, page 256. What am I to do with this? Do not be the wife of heaven in the wife of the earth. No, in heaven, as I've said we can't be any different, nor can everyone hide anything or others. Everyone can read in your kill and know your interest is affection. It is very different on earth. The physical body hides the flaws of the soul. We one considering the existence of the family, i.e., we get, but as soon as we have gross passions, but the straight body is no longer needed, we then let's start with the freedom of thought. We are no longer alert, and I think we should stay away from each other. As everyone takes their carnal affection to heaven with them, like we cannot sacrifice them to anyone, but on the contrary, satisfy them. should do, we no longer look for each other to your annoyance in birth, but to increase our joy, then the woman you're with having lived on earth, that is not who you are, detected through magnetism. Wish can, God gives you another one that is half himself. You man was made male and female. Can it be that a physical body consists of two bodies which are themselves at the time of death? Repeats no, it is not that man has created male and female, but no bisexual, nor two bodies in each other, as you say, but different alert, that is, he takes double birth and remains separate. His complement in every heaven waiting. I don't understand this statement. Let me tell you that every creature that is born is a double, whether male or female, that we Lotus 256 even if we don't meet each other in heaven, earth. Asterisk car, according to you, earth but we are at odds. Yeah, it's better to explain to you, my guide does showing me a picture of the way it is done. I see many women before me, among whom the first woman in the world page 257 brings a boy who instantly chooses himself, me a little girl enables them to see, which is similar to them in their eyes, and that of the other. Enters the body like a germ, allows the woman to be reared there and her to attain life in fullness. This little girl will be his complement or wife. Boy whom she released, and whom she would love her younger twin brother take for, they will join each other in heaven, no matter what time and when born on the spot, because my side tells me that the little girl who is the little girl half of the boy, according to order and desire, can be God, justified do not be born in the inheritance or in the same country, still they are eligible for this word. Those times bloom in heaven, but, though she is born in a different spirit, yet, to fulfill her join the car in half of his part, and stay with him for a year. As pure, renewed when this second half arises in the same process will go, and the girl will issue a boy, which may happen. Will not be completed unless they are half the issues in the way, which is a small there will be a girl, and so on, do you understand now? I 257 Let me explain to you the secret here about our being on earth that rests upon you. It has appeared. I thank you, if it is so, then God is infinitely good. Can you do the good of God in your chosen position? I know ignorance. What would the scholars say about a mystery that would lead them to a system? Must take, those who have worked, and will continue to be, so many, if they believe, like me, that no simple unity is possible, that when something is in pairs, each the object of infinity has two sides, the lotus of both is the face, their page 258 poetry is sorrow. Thus you believe that half of everything is lost, ad infinitum yes. You believe that the first half adds to the curve or to the second weights yet. When they bloom in heaven, their happiness is real, and his lotus eternal. Yes, I should neither have believed nor should have believed it is in my general position, because it is a fact, and please accept only errors. Here's a revelation I can't keep with my reflexes, yet if not, it is at least consoling. 258 Deathbed vision or foreshadowing of death. This class-based sound of physical creations that kill many dead friends for those in whom some unknown has died, only to pay the utmost attention is qualified, and such cases, if sufficiently established as facts, has tremendous scientific value. It would be natural to assume that the death knuckle is often present. Hallucinations of any kind and thus can be dismissed. But when we discovers that the dying person provides supernatural information that does not may be due to telepathy or combination, it is not that a part of the fact. Page 259 of particular importance is the strong support it gives to human beings after physical death. The principle of survival of the personality. Sorry, this is the rarest kind of building, but it's the case with this. Nature may not be produced to order, we only them gratitude can acknowledge when they happen. Of course, keeping the keyprint are hidden in family circles that have never been revealed. Everyone does in displaying such holy things in a sweet and graceful world. Do not be hasty, not even in the cause of death. Professor Charles Richet, who covered the survival theory almost till the end of his days, said that 259 when cases of deathbed embalming, especially when a young child was involved, had come his information, he seemed to be unable to deny the existence. He thought it was the purest kind of creation in the vast field of psychic research. Commander French Power Kobe at the Pia in Darien explained the well-reported matters. Described when the dead friends came to welcome the new arrival, the dead man lay silently, when suddenly, at the end of his work, he looks up, sometimes starting at the bedside, and sees what sometimes with an expression of surprise, Ricky seems to grow into joy used to be, and sometimes the first feeling is reduced to grave surprise and astonishment. The dead had to see something completely unexpected but immediately recognized the sight, to which he was very surprised or hilariously delighted. His face, this fact couldn't have explained it better. Page 260. It sounds like death is really happening, and the eyes sparkle even when they see the unknown. A conjecture of deathbed specialties should be taken into account, and that is, only those who die claim to see those who have died before them, whereas, acting as hallucinations had been, he may also think that he saw that someone was still alive but is absent from the room. We hardly ever choose without this reason. Sometimes 260. Sometimes it is enough to be a witness to the deathbed of this nature. To persuade, an example of this is the demonstration of natural mental illness. All old matters are worth, although well-founded in the world. Advocate case. The matter was confirmed by Mr. Henley Wedgwood, who explained it was several years to the first sector. A young girl, who was close to me, was dying of food, and she, till when she was taking anything in a vain state without any notice, when she opened eyes and looked up, said softly, "Vone and Jane and Ellen," as if recognizing the presence of three sisters who had the same disease before there was death. Then after a short pause he said, "And Edward too," to the brother named, so India should have been healthy and alive, as if to a surprise. Seeing in, she said no more and sank after a while. Page 261. In postal order received letters from India saying that in a week or so Edward died as a result of an accident in England with his sister before his death. 261. This incident was related to me with an older sister who took care of her, the girl who died, and was present on the bed at the time of revelation. Junla case. The author of the following account is Congalby, a famous Irish gendarme. That his wife made him go with his bakeries to one lodge, but Oliver, the Bible Orman, New York, George H. Dorr and Company, 148. A Commission X, who was training as a public worker, but after all Mr. Z did not come out in that capacity, after committing to the alien. 6 or so later Mrs. B, who was dying, spoke to her husband. In the presence of he chose to go, saying that he had chosen many times and that they had a voice, she knew them but didn't remember whose voice could it be. Suddenly she stopped and said, pointing at my head, says Kangal. B, why, she's in the corner of the room, it's Julia X. She's the man, she's yours. Leaning up, his hand is up, she is praying. Look, she is going. I turned but could not see anything. Mrs. B then said, page 262. She's gone. When these things Ryan's hearing and singing voices, I saw it dying to the side of the person's edges. Afterward, not taking the times, I saw that death had been set Mr. Jade's wife Julia Jade. I was so amazed that in one or the other after the funeral I went upstairs and Mr. X asked if Kamaj Z, his daughter, was dead. He said, yes, poor man, she died of fever earlier. When she died, she went in the morning and went and then until she died. Athlice case. This matter was done in a letter to the HPR. By Edmund Chuney and Frederick W. H. Myring, after whom Revelation D. J. Teller, who made it straight the narrator, H. K. Cocker received, who wished to remain anonymous, on November 2 and 3, 1870, I lost my two eldest boys, David Edward Did and Harry, with scaly fever, are 3 and 4 years old respectively. Harry died November 2. Co Abbey in Landley. My coverage in the 14-mile display. What happened next? In display. About an hour before the child died, he sat on the bed. And pointed to the bottom of the bed and said, Little Harry is calling page 263 page 264 for me. I am sure of the veracity of this fact, and it was also chosen Nig, signed, XZ, HKK. In letters and conversations with Mr. Weller, Frank Podmar received the following description: Mr. Z. Carker tells me that it was very caring for David to know that it took him to stop that Harry was dead, and he was sure that David knew it. Did not know. Mr. Z himself was present and chose what the boy said. At that time the boy was not Parle. The Ogle case. My brother, John Allen Orle, died in Leading on July 17, 1879. About an hour before his death he saw his brother, whose death was about 16 years ago, and looking with certain interest said, that, and immediately said with enthusiastic surprise, George Hanley. My mother, who came to Melbourne, was, at a distance of about 40 miles, marvelled at where George Hanley lived, and was turning. My sister-in-law asked if anyone told John about George Hanley told death. He said, no one, and only my mother was present, who the fact was there. I was present and saw this. Signed, Hare. HORL. 264. In response to the questioning, Mr. Orle said, John A. Orle was neither delusional nor were unconscious when he said the recorded words. George Hanley. John A. K. Param Chat page 265 were. ORL, no special, familiar friend. Hanley didn't die at his trial mentioned in Napersala case. The Dean of Wealth Drive E.H. Plumtree referred the matter to the forwarded to the Vector, who published it on August 26, 1882, mother of one of our nation's foremost philosophers and theologians. April in 1854, he was lying on his deathbed almost in a state of complete unconsciousness. Why? Shortly before his death, the following words came to his lips: there they are all, William, Elizabeth, Emma, and Anne. Then one after the other, they, he said, and also Caprazola. William was a son who died in infancy, and whose name was mother's lips never happened till their children. Why did Caprica die before, but his death, though known to the family, was not reported? Take 265 F case. The news of F's death was in the Mormon papers in Boston, and I, Dr. Richard Hodgen, wrote page 266, saw me on the way to my seat. The first writing came from Madame Ulilla, my expectation. Why? He wrote and was firm, explaining that F was with him, but was unable to speak directly, that he told me of this, wanted to say how she had helped F to reach her. He said that she was present on his deathbed and spoke to him, and he repeated what he had said, an unusual form of expression, and indicated that they had chosen and recognized him. This was explained in the only way possible at that time, by Madame Ella and a very junior friend of mine, and also by A's closest living relatives. I made an account of my friend sitting, and to this friend, one or two afterward, the relative present on the deathbed said that he died unexpectedly. Said that he saw Madame Elijah who was doing those things, and he said the same, repeated what she was saying. Quote, a friend who got me through Cambridge Piper from Madame Ulilla Tha Trans, 266 2 when deathbed was certainly completely unknown to me. Jenny case. This is a well-documented case on the authority of Dr. Kamnan J. Vavage, who the names and addresses of the vessels concerned were known. 1 Proceedings, HPR, 13, 378, Pune. 2 A famous American medium. 3 Jangle, APR, January, 1907, 50.85 page 267. In a neighboring town there were two little girls, Jenny and Eckerth, about one the distance and distance a little longer. They were HP and internal friends. Both in June, 1889 diphtheria fell ill. But Jenny died on Wednesday afternoon. Karakdath parents, and also their therapists, made special efforts to avoid the fact raised that his little one was gone. They feared the effect of knowledge your condition. To prove that they were wrong and that they did not, it is worth mentioning that on Saturday, June 8, As soon as he knows about her whatever was happening, she fainted, she chose the one sent to Jenny. About his pictures going, and his attendants also told him say goodbye. He died on Saturday, June 8 at 6:30 p.m. He had 267. He called his friends Jayana and Alkiva, and talked about the dead. And seemed to have no fear. She looks at each other. Most of the friends she had known were already dead. So far it's common cases it was like. But now suddenly, and with every surprise, she turned to her father and said, "Why, Papa, I'm taking Jenny with me." Then he said, "Why, Papa? Why, Dad? You didn't tell me Jenny was here," and immediately he raised his arms spread as if it were welcome inside, and said, "Oh, Jenny, I'm so glad you're here." HO Notary Case page 268. In a strict sense, this matter is outside the category in this chapter, but since it is a child is related to the deathbed of the 3-year-old, a girl was seen by an eyewitness. This senior, reported by Thapololi, librarian of the Victor Emmanuel Library in Rome, and published in Lulu-EOA, 1920, a little girl of 3 years old, notary, partly paralyzed by capopoli, was in same room with his 4-month-old younger brother, who was dying. 268. Both the children's father, mother, and mother were present. About 15 minutes after the death of the infant first, little Hippolyte was outstretched, stretching out his arms and saying, "Look, mother, Aunt Olga." It was Aunt Olga, a mother's younger sister, who had a baby. The earlier happiness was due to the despair in love. Parents asked, "Where do you see?" "Ho. Auntie Olga." The child replied, "There, there," and tried to decorate "Go to bed to visit your aunt." He did it, that part tax vacated something, and was waved a lot because the view shifted was the other side of the room. The child turned and, pointing to a corner, said, "I Olga is." Then she fell silent and the child died. Case number 46 page 269. More case. It is believed that there is no evidence in this case, but Dr. Collin, New York of the city, who witnessed this deathbed scene, complained that it was among the most beautiful examples of the kind he had ever known. 269. Mr. James Moore, a well-known American clerk, was dying, and Dr. Cavillon, the living room. The description of being in that room is as follows: "Then something happened that I can never forget after my death, something like this which is completely indescribable. Whereas he completely blinded any man as logic and reasoning as I have ever seen, the only way I can express that they were taken to another world, and although I cannot handle this matter to my satisfaction, I firmly believe that he entered the city of heaven, because he said in a very powerful voice when I attended them, 'Then he used to be, mother.' 'Why, mother, have you come to see me?' 'No, no, I am coming to see you.' 'To buy, Mom, I'm almost finished. I can jump it?' 'Wait, mother.' One on his face was the look of unspeakable happiness, and the way he said words to me impressed like I've never done before, and I'm just as confident that he saw and talked to his mother as I am sitting here. In my opinion, to preserve his conversation with his mother and to keep a record of the strangest sense of forest, I immediately say every word he says." Page 270. Incited to it was one of the most beautiful deaths I have ever seen. Published in line for the first time. 270. Admin. A case in its September 1924 issue, he reviewed a loss of Manu Paulo Nu. Strikingly commented on the building in which the deceased was Edkamil Zernikayaka. A few hours before his death, Roddy told his father that he was sitting next to the bed. Saw several members of the family, all of whom died a few years ago. The father blamed responsible for a state in extreme delirium, but Edkamna the end insisted, and the invisible visitors in the middle named their brother Alfredo, who was employed at the time, at a distance of 423 kilometers, out of on the lighthouse. The father: I'm becoming more and more convinced of the natural nature of these signs, this knowing that his son Alfredo was in perfect health. A few days ago good news was sent about you. Amina died that evening, and early morning her father was a telegram. Received in which he was informed of the death of young Alfredo. Dying girl was still alive at the death of his brother. Moody case page 271 page 272 as the famous American preacher D. L. Moody, died in 1899, he last chosen shouting, "Earth is behind, heaven opens to me," to the attendants had to try and reveal that as a dream. "No, it's not, I don't know, only," he repeated. "That's beautiful. This one is like trance, this is death, so it is sweet." Then they discussed with full reasoning what needs to be done about his work after his death. Then his face lit up, and he said in a voice of joyous excitement, "DWY? Irene. I see the faces of the children, the little including the grandchildren, God took their lives last year." Then he fainted, revived, and said, "What does this do?" Meaning, "What are you doing here?" Then, clarifying the position, he went on, "It's a strange thing. I'm over death's door and to the gates of heaven. And here I am back again." Duroc case here. William A. Barrett quotes this in his book Deathbed Cause and 272 page 273. The case is as follows: my uncle, M. Paul Duroc, left Paris in 1893 to visit America, with my aunt and other family members. When they Venezuela to my uncle, he progressed to yellow fever and died in Caracay on June 24, on 1894. Just before his death, and living close to his entire family, he spent a long until the time of delirium, during which he called the names of some friends went to France and whom he was looking at. "Well, well, you too, and you too." Though this information is naughty, no one attached any premise these words were given importance when they were spoken, but they achieved after the family found a groundbreaking importance on their return letters of invitation for the funeral of persons nominated by my uncle before his death, and who had died before him. Just recently I will not be able to collect the testimonies of only two survivors, my cousin Jameen and Maury Duroc. Jameen confirmed as follows: "You ask me the details of my dear father's death. I remember well he was dying, although it was many years ago. The thing that might interest you is that he told us about seeing some man in heaven and he to talk long. We were very surprised to see the funeral cards of the same people 273 returning to France to find whom he saw when he died. Maury, who grew up to me they could have given you more information on this subject." Page 274. Maury Duroc wrote, 1 Barrett, William A., Deathbed Vision, London, Methuen & Co., Limited. Deathbed Coverage 89. What do you ask me about the death of my father, which happened a long time ago? I remember a few moments before his death my father took one of his old friends called the name M. Eshveri, with whom he had no relation, even that correspondence to, many, crying out, "Ah! You too," or some similar phrase. Only after returning the parish, we will be the last of this engine. Award card Kamala. Maybe my father mentioned other names too, but I don't like them. B. Case Lady Barrett addressed the matter to William A. brought to the knowledge of Barrett, who included in his book, Deathbed Vision, page 10. This happened when Lady Barry was treating a patient at Clapton's Milling Hospital, in whom he is one of the world's. He had an urgent Kamala Kanwari medical officer, Dr. 274 clips message, the patient to come, Mrs. B., who was in agony and gravely the heart was suffering. Lady Barrett went away, and took the child safely delivered, although the mother was dying at that time. Two other employees after seeing Lady Beryl went back to Mrs. B's ward, and the following conversation it happened, which was written later. Lady Barry writes, page 275. When I entered the ward, Mrs. B held my hand and said, thank you for all you have done for me, baby, for bringing it up. Is this a boy or a girl? Then he held my hand and said, don't leave me, don't go away, right, and after a few commissions, while Howdy did some restorative measures, she was looking up at the open part of the room, who was in the bright light, and said, oh, don't let it get dark, It's getting too dark. Ha ha and ha ha. Her husband and mother had been sent. He looked to the side, a radiant smile illuminating his entire face. Oh dear, dear, he said. I asked, what's cute? What I saw, he replied in a less sharp voice. What do you see? Bright shining, wonderful creature. It's hard for them to live to describe a sense of individual reality by absorption, then that he seems to be trying to concentrate his attention in one place. For a moment, he cried almost happily and said, why, it's worth it. 275. Oh, she's so glad I'm coming, he is very happy. It would be if only Ukapat Mat may also come. His child was brought to see him. He looked at it and then said, do you think I should want? Be there for the child. Turning to his eyes, he said, I can't stay, I don't can stay, if you can see what I do, you know I can't keep up. Page 276. But she turned to her husband, who had come in, and said, you wouldn't let a child go near someone who wouldn't love them, would they? Then slowly he pushed him aside and said, let me see the bright glow. I left after a while and the matron took my place at the bedside. She lived for another hour and it seems that they will continue till the last minute. Remain the dual consciousness of the bright forms he saw and the people present too on his bed. For example, he arranged with the matron that the child should stay in the hospital till he is very strong, don't be able to take care of a base year. Signed, Florence E. Barrett. Dr. Clips, who was in attendance, wrote to Siro after reading the note William A. Barrett, saying that he completely agrees with Lady Barrel's account. 276. The most important goal is yet to come, and it was supplied by matron of the hospital, who sent the following account, I was present with Mrs. B shortly before her death. Mother. His husband was leaning over him and speaking when he pushed him aside. He said, oh, don't hide it, it is such a beautiful one. Then he got away from me and, being on the other side of the bed, Mrs. B said, oh why, there is poetry, injuring a sister who didn't tell her 3 weeks before her death what was it? Later the mother, who was present at that time, told me, as I have said, that the poem Mrs. B had a deceased sister's name, whose illness and death were fatal. Were unaware, as they had heeded the news to Mrs. B. because of his serious illness. Signed, Kamaria Kal, Matron. Page 277. Day bed new mother of Mrs. B, Mrs. Clark, near William A. furnished the Barrett an independent report. 277. I have chosen that you are interested in the beautiful passing of my beloved on January 12, 1924, the soul of this earth baby. Such a wonderful part of the death of my beloved daughter. It is it, the poem, which was invalid for some years. He died on November 25, 1923, his youngest 2 weeks ago, and 4 weeks ago, Dory's sister, Dory, died. My baby girl, Mrs. B, was very ill at that time, and the matron of Milling Hospital, Mrs. B, to learn about the death of his sister. So when we go to see him, so we leave him, mourned, and went to see him as usual. All letters were also kept by request until her husband saw it. They were the first to see who they were. This precaution was taken, somewhere do not have outside friends, possibly in writing, pointing to the recent mourning due, unaware of this very dangerous condition of their health. While my sweet baby girl was drowning, she said, I can see father. He has a poem, Carr said, turning to me, poetry with him. Carr said, do you want me, Kapitaji? I am coming. Your Honor, page 278, signed, Mary D. Clark. 278. Automatic writing. These types of medium can be classified into 2 groups. 1. Automatic writing done by automacists with pencil and paper may, or may not, be in a trance. Such writings by him were subconscious. One must firmly believe or even stop the nature that emerges. Page 279. Manufacture of medium and 95%, doesn't reveal anything but hidden 279 wishes and desires can be safely dismissed as rubbish. This form of mediation is a happy hunting ground for individuals. A self-abundance education faculty of Kina with ribbies, and bad luck time lapsed public is deceived written by such persons with books. 2. Ouija board, one with an apparatus consisting of a passenger and a square, the figures and numerical rotations printed on the board and in alphabetical order, yes, no, and with the words undetermined to be added or inconvenienced. Passenger, usually a small wedge-shaped piece of wood, is half an inch thick. Medium, or the combination of two, places his hand on the traveler and it on the board. From the letter to the board, let's count the letters, the messages. There may be a comment regarding handwriting. Ouija can also be applied to board work. Like phantoms and pins, automatic writing is as old as hills, and many ancient, as well as modern, writers have declared that works in a semi-trance state has produced. Harry Beecher Stowe, author of Uncle Tom's Cabin, said that he did not write that book, hero hand was the instrument of the other person. Cavalier Blake, in the preface to his great poem Jerusalem, wrote that it was to him was connected. Page 280, page 281. There is a great poem in this world, I can admire it because I do not pretend to be anything other than God. I wrote this poem. Writing is immediate dictation, 12 or sometimes between or 3 lines at a time, within me and even within my will. Examples of automatic writing ever arisen: one of French and German words combinations out and go, both mean yes. Automatic writing, the organizing or nature of water, which Charles Dargan quoted in his Species Origin of Wood. The great naturalist have mentioned water. Work. Did he know this mystical origin? Different theories prevail regarding the motivation of both types of automatic writing. Some mediums tell that Kavachar takes hold of his leader and that he expresses in language under normal conditions. Are in the state and are completely unaware until they come to their senses till what the hand has yielded. Critics, however, are apathetic to the technology, they judge communication by its content. Hall Case 281, page 282. First, let me say that I was very skeptical before the investment came to me. Who changed me and changed me? My sister, to whom I was already attached, was a lot of people. In close contact and warm friendship with K, the power of which is at a very high level. Automatic writing. In order to close the matter to my husband, I'm afraid I'm going to miss family history. Which is not entirely a happy memory. In March some time ago, in 1894, I had a brother who is much older than me, who was very rich. Later, had worked in great poverty, was in receipt of one in South Africa, and this sheep was paid by me towards the family. A sweet friend, through the Archdeacon Wall, who had very reluctantly accepted somewhat unbearable work. To say it too soon, my brother was a drunk, and as usual in this case, the money that came directly in his hand went into the liquor. Can I kina this? Archdeacon Wall kindly received a call where unfortunately patient can be cared for, fed, and dressed and, as far as possible, free from drinking. As it often happens 282 the category of the case, the recipient of such assistance was greatly annoyed that payment should be made as such, and demanded that they be paid directly go. There was some correspondence between us on this subject. Page 283.